our second topic. And this one, I think, is if you guys are a fan of the pro circuit, no more bot TI. The fun is over. Now we're going to talk about something real. And this is in connection with one player talking about buhay niya after, not making TI this year. We're talking about Black. And in an interview with Esports Heaven, sabi ni Black, among other things, that kaya pa daw niyang mag-perform as a player and maybe becoming an analyst is something that he's thinking of doing. He's tried it before. He
Mm-hmm.
enjoys parts of it, but given a choice, he would still want to be a player. So our question right now is Black, Dominic Reitner, better off as an analyst or is he better off as an active player? Ren, what you take?
For me, the answer is he's better off as a player
Mm.
for the very basic reason, or for the very straightforward reason
Mm.
that that is something that he wants right now. Uh, Again, he has expressed that he
Mm.
thinks he's still one of the better players in the game, and I have to agree because if you look in the Wikipedia stub right now, there are about 800 players. Maybe more than half of those are unnamed or mediocre players that most of us probably don't know of. And when you look at Black in his position there, he's still probably one of the best players in the world. Uh, if you first position for the carry, maybe I would say top. Just
That's okay.
very generous.
Very generous.
Very
Top what?
generous, probably top 20 is easily.
Top 20.
I would say
Alright.
top 20
Okay.
easily. And for someone like that, and for someone like Black who's willing to travel,
Mm.
I would say as far as he wants to play, he will find no shortage of teams who wants to get him.
Mhm.
It's just on what he's willing for and how ano bang expectations sa team and sa sarili niya. It's hard for me to say na he's gonna be better off as an analyst when he himself believed na kaya na pang maging player and he has the skills, because I think that's gonna bring a lot of regret for him, or maybe uncertainties towards later on his career. Na he was talking about in the same article how when he sees plays na this could have been me. This I think this is something I can do. I think this is something I can do better. And yes, he has shown flashes of brilliance before. I think his play style needs the team needs to be built around him because he has a certain style. But yeah, as long as Dill wants to play, I think that's the direction he should go to. And again, as you said, he's exploring the idea of being an analyst. That's something that he has done, and not only something he has done, it's something he has done well.
Mm.
People actually like him being an analyst. He has a lot of insight, a lot of wisdom being shared, and he's as shy as he is. I think he's a very shy person. I've talked to him several times. I've been with him several times. Um, but he's still very passionate. As shy as he is, we see in Manila Masters how he joined a skit with Eri.
Yeah, this is
There's
the Besico, yeah, the Besico
skit.
segment, yeah.
But see, he was talking to several people. He was practicing his lines, and he was really passionate about it. And I think that's something that also people want for an analyst. And he's also very charming in that way because of the passion. He's coming, his wisdom, and he's sharing it not in an arrogant manner.
Right.
So I think that's very helpful. As a player, I think he does have flaws. He admittedly said he favored the traditional carries na right now are kind of slow. He does have a wider hero pool than people expect. Like he knows how
He
to
has
play.
Slark, he has Clinks,
Yeah, the-
people were expecting him to
The,
just
u-
AM
no,
all the
the
time.
faster Slark, Clinks, Bloodseeker, Mirana in this age, he can play the Invoker and the Pudge carry even. But then, going back in his last 3 games in CG, the team he left before this, last 3 games are Medusa, Spec, in AM.
Not exactly.
And going
yeah.
back, I think just going back to his score and what he and his team thinks he is. So, whether that kung ganun ba talaga siya or hanggang dun lang ba kaya na, that's not for me to decide. But that's the thing, that's the route that his team thinks the best for him. I think yun pa rin ang limitations niya. If
I-
hindi pa rin
I
siya
mean,
babalik.
It's more of an I tend to agree. I think he can make it as a player.
Mhm.
I think he can make it as a player.
Yeah. So, anong masabi mo sa top 20 carry?
Top 20 carry.
No, it's hindi mo lang nalista yung top 20 mo so far. It's kind of...
I think he's in the top 20.
I
I
think
think
it's
he's in
fair.
the top 20. Pero sa akin siguro nasa bottom half siya ng top 20. Just because,
Mm.
katulad na sabi mo, my criticism of him as a player does not mean I don't respect him as a player.
Oh,
Because he is a
definitely.
very,
Yeah, I
obviously a
understand that.
very, very great, very good player. One of the players who I actually like his style because one of my favorite players of all time is Burning,
Mhm.
which is a style that he's
No,
very good.
you're a niche pala. You're one of the few people who
I
like
am one
burning.
of the few people who actually likes Burning,
The
right?
few people who like burning.
Although when he was in DK, I also know this, he was also the worst player in DK. So that's one of those things.
That's not a hard ano naman.
That's not
That's
hard
not a
thing to
criticism
exactly.
for that DK.
Although in this day and age, MMY would have been the worst. Anyway, that's not
Mhm.
that's
Oh,
neither here nor there.
I love Weapon X.
I love Weapon X when he's playing Lion. Anyway, I don't think that he should not become a player anymore. But I do tend to take a stronger side on what he should become. I've talked to Black. You know, I've
Mhm.
talked to Black. I almost called him dummy. I've talked to Black a lot, like you. He's a very shy person,
Mhm.
right? I think I would have a different. It would be a different story for me if it were someone like Kyle, because I look at someone like Kyle, obviously, tremendous competitor. Na meron pa siyang ability to play the game, can be a great captain. Siguro yung whatever temper issues he may have, you know that he can deliver some results. The same way I look at Black right now, right?
Mhm.
Both of them are tremendous players. Both of them still have that drive to compete. And I don't want to block them from being players because of that. I think they are still skilled. But the difference here is that if I look at Kyle, and Kyle told me, I can become a player, I can become an analyst. I will tell him, you can be both. He can be both. He has a very genial personality, very good on camera, as we've seen. I think he's better on a panel than he is at casting, but you know that he belongs on a production.
Yeah.
He belongs on a production.
I
He's
second
very
that.
entertaining. I look at Black and I don't feel the same. If he were to ask me, what should I be? Become a player or become an analyst? I will tell him become a player. His insights are amazing because he's a
Mhm.
good player. He's a great player. That's why his insights are amazing. But is that necessary to carry an entire broadcast? I could argue that it isn't. We know
well-
we're broadcasters by trade.
I know. I think in that regards, I think he
Mm.
fits well with someone, let's say like Kyle.
Sure, because you can
you
complement
need
it,
someone who
right?
can make him open up, because as long as he speaks, people are actually happy when he speaks. But
Well, yes, pero
when paired
that's
up with someone with
pero
like,
pero yun yung ibig ko sabihin.
uh-huh.
It's not stated in the question, but I think he would do better as a coach. If he were to give me a binary choice,
Okay.
right? But if the binary choice were between player and analyst, I would prefer that he play. Because I think kaya pa niya, I think he is very skilled, and that's something that he wants to do. But if the choice were for him to become an analyst as well, I would say no. Put a pause on that.
Mhm.
And not to say that all analysts or all broadcast personalities have to be extroverted or all of them have to be like Kyle. No, I understand the balance. I myself, I'm not as extroverted and I do broadcasts,
Mhm.
right? But I do think that there is a special kind of personality that has to balance being genial on camera and at the same time, having that brand of reservedness. I don't think he has that yet. I think he's more reserved and he's smart. In that situation, I would rather that he either play or become a coach. I'll give you an example. Draskill. Draskill is an example of a Dota 2 personality who's great on camera, been to TI on the commentator panel, been to TI as a caster, but someone who's great on camera despite being more quiet than his counterparts. He's not an LD. He's not an OD pixel. Another example for you, Fogged. Fogged is another example that I love to go to. Again, smart guy, former professional player, much more comfortable in front of a camera. When I look at Black, yes, you need someone to activate him, but that's exactly why I think he's better as a coach. Because you need to activate Black in front of a camera. You don't need to activate him when he's telling people what to do in the game or when he's playing the game. Nakita natin yung performance no entity. I think it's one of the clips that we've shown
Yeah.
kanina. They put up a good fight against TNC. They made it into the last slot, right? TNC Tigers, Entity, then TNC. We're the last three teams fighting for a slot. Fnatic made the first one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think kaya pa niyang ituloy yun. I think this year, I hope that he makes it on another SEA team. In all honesty, I hope
Another
that
SEA team.
yes, I hope that he stays in the region
All right.
because his presence in the region, I think, will, especially next year, will become very, very interesting for us. Okay, next year potentially we have TNC Pro Team, TNC Tigers, and Mineski and Fnatic.
Mm-hmm.
Those four teams alone already make me excited for next season.
Yeah.
You add the presence of Black. And if Black works with new talent once again, Joe Beasy, Filipino player, support player, yung Warlock na nakita nyo dun sa last na clip, right? His inclusion in a sort of team like that can make those players better. And that's good for the overall health of the scene. It's also good for him as a competitor because I think he does well in China and SEA. I don't know if he has any plans to play again in Europe. He's sort of flip-flopped away
I
from
think
Europe.
he's open for.
He's open
he's
for
very
anything,
open to
right?
anything
Pero
right
I think there are other factors that go into that because in the last year, in the last 2 years, right, he was in Faceless. No, he was in China in Vici, then went to Team Tinker, then went to Faceless,
Yeah.
and then ngayon bounced around other areas. Ultimately, played for TI qualifier in Southeast Asia in Entity Gaming. So yun lang. I think he still has what it takes to become a player. If the question is between a player analyst, I would prefer he play. If the question is between play or something else, I would say play or coach.
Okay.
Play or coach.
Yeah,
Para sa akin.
I would say na player for me. Just again, on the biggest reason he still wants to be a player. Plus, he is actually good enough to be a player. But ang hindi lang ako kagisay sa analyst side. Yes, someone needs to activate him.
Right.
But analyst panels right now have people whose specific jobs is to activate other analysts.
I mean, that's true.
something that we see in
Yeah.
the top panels right now.
That's true. Pero I think it also takes... kasi ang pinag-uusapan natin dito is become. So I'm assuming that that's a career path.
Okay.
I don't think kaya niya siya sa career path. It worked as a one-off. Right? It worked as a one-off.
Mhm.
Pero going forward, you need a special kind of person who's always on all the time whenever the cameras are on. And I don't think he's that kind of person. I think Kyle can be that person. I think if Kyle were to go full-time as an analyst, kakayanin ni
I
Kyle.
think Kyle is already that person.
Well, yeah,
actually.
pero I mean,
I mean,
he has a different issue where he
yeah,
wants to
yeah.
do everything,
Yeah.
right? He wants to do everything. He wants to be a personality. He wants to be a broadcast talent. He wants to be a player. He wants to be a coach. He wanted to put up a website, but that's for another day.
That's what makes him.
That's what makes him Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what makes him.
That's what makes him
yes.
Kyle. Pero it takes a special kind of personality kasi to be just on camera. For number one, the same reason na sinabi mo sa akin, when he looks at a game, he still thinks, kaya ko yung ginagawa nila.
Mhm.
You can't have that when you're a
Yeah, and
broadcast
that's from him, by the way.
personality.
That's not a quote from me.
Yes,
what
that's
he
from
said.
him. That's
So
from his...
Just to be clear now, we're not assuming
yeah.
his state of mind.
That's from a quote from him from a question on Esports 7.
Yeah, that was just 3-4 days ago. It's
Yeah,
very
3 or 4
fresh,
days ago. Sabi niya yun, di ba? Na when he looks at the player, gusto pa niyang gawin, inisip niya, kaya pa niya ginagawa na yun.
Mhm.
You cannot have that when you're an analyst. You cannot. If you want to be an analyst as your
Again,
job.
that's what I'm saying. If you have that and you became an analyst, you're
Yeah,
gonna live in regret, basically.
Exactly, right? So, para sa akin, player. Coach na siguro yung second na pwede mong gawin. But even then, it's not advisable because if you're looking at your player and then gusto mo pang gawin,
You know, I'm better than you.
I'm better than you.
That's
It's
why-
still going to cause friction. Kaya para sa akin,
Friction, yes.
friction is a kind word.
Understatement. It's an
Yes,
understatement, yeah.
It's an understatement. Pero yun yung para sa akin. I think player,
Mhm.
absolutely. I wish that the meta goes back to AM.
I know, maybe we can have a unicorn where they make it work somehow.
That's true.
It's
I mean,
possible. We've
it's true.
seen things make, like Wings made everything happen.
yeah, Wings made everything viable. Pero yun yung ano ko doon. I think he can still do it.
Yeah, I think as a player, again, for someone as good as him, if he wants to play, no one's gonna stop him from playing because there's gonna be a team who's gonna offer him a job.
That's
For
true. I think
for
the
sure.
question now is Sino. Who is going to... There are a lot... And this is a very A very loaded question. There's a lot of things to consider. Which teams are going to dismantle? Which teams are going to rebuild? Which teams are going to stay in Dota? Those are still unanswered questions. So we don't know where he's going to end
Mhm.
up. Entity Gaming may or may not have the necessary funds to put up an entire year with a player of Black Caliber. He does command a high enough salary, which is why when they built the team, it was just to be for TI. If they didn't make TI, he's out.
Yeah, they're out. I
All
think
of them actually.
everyone is out. Yeah,
Everyone. In fact, right after they lost their coach, si Skantzor, flew right back to
Africa.
South Africa. Yeah, Johannesburg. So, all right, that's it for us. We'll still have another topic when